we'll do the live thing first. Like, dancing and prancing up Jingle Bell Square in the frosty air. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Bigmark podcast. It's me, your host, Bigmark. If it's your first time listening, welcome. If not, welcome back. Welcome to the Bigmark Christmas Spectacular. If it's your first time listening, please follow along wherever you are listening. Add us to your lists. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, make sure you know when all the content is dropping. If you ever wanted to reach out to us, hit up our DMs at the Bigmark Pod or at the Bigmark Podcast. And if you ever want to donate to the podcast this holiday season, check out our Patreon, patreon.com/thebigmarkpod. And again, thank you again for listening. You know, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everyone who celebrates, everyone who doesn't. Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Festivus, everything. Thank you all for listening. This is the 106th episode and just before Christmas, so I thought I'd do somewhat of a little special thing. Again, still kind of settling into the studio here, but, you know, slowly but surely. I don't know if anyone's following along. I'm sure you're noticing that this little shelf over here is slowly but surely kind of coming back into form. I kind of have my advent calendar over here because I got to have some kind of Christmas thing, but don't have that many decorations right now. So what are you going to do? But, you know, I thought I'd kind of, you know, get into, you know, the Christmas memories, things like that, things I love about Christmas, some stuff that my family does and things like that. And, you know, I always thought about, you know, Christmas movies obviously always come up when you're talking about Christmas, and, you know, there's so many good ones. I have no idea where to even begin. But there's always this, you know, one of my favorite movies of all time, and it happens to have Christmas in the title, and there's no doubt that it is a Christmas movie, but it's kind of one of those movies that it's, in my opinion, the perfect bridge between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and that is The Nightmare Before Christmas. And I don't know, I loved the animation in it. I really dig the story. You know, Jack Skellington kind of being like a little bit of a loner type character and looking for something else and looking for something different and more of the role that he's playing. And then also the intricate elements of like Jack like forcing himself into the position while being, you know, completely righteous and like he's not trying to do anything wrong, but he like fucking legit like kidnaps or gets the lock, stock, and barrel to kidnap Sandy Claus. You know, it's kind of one of those things where it's like it's just like an interesting moral quandary for like fucking children's movie, basically. But again, you know, of course, Halloween really, you know, even Thanksgiving, from Halloween to Christmas really is Nightmare Before Christmas season. And I always really loved it. And you know, Jack, that just, I don't know, it's like there's like a darkness to it, obviously being Tim Burton and everything but I guess that juxtaposed to Christmas being so beautiful and like shiny and polished. And it was kind of cool that within the movie, like when Jack goes to Christmas Town, he's like, it is like so perfectly Christmas. I think that's the biggest thing that sometimes gets overlooked. It's just like the Christmas Town scenes are so perfectly Christmas and so cool. And like, again, just like such a wild juxtaposition between like the darkness of Halloween Town and all that crazy stuff in Christmas Town, whatever. Right. But yeah, you know, there's like, you know, Christmas around the world is always celebrated really differently. And I got put on to this whole notion in fucking grade 1 which seems wild, but it's because when we did our like little Christmas concert, so at the school I was at the time, our Christmas concert was like every grade did like a different country's Christmas. So Christmas around the world. And my class got Sweden as the country. So for anyone who doesn't know, Swedish Santa, relatively similar. And I'm a kid going like, oh, like I was like, so in grade 1, how fucking old are you in grade 1? Like 6? I guess if you start, let's say you start kindergarten at like 4 or whatever, right? I'm pretty sure. Fuck. Let's say you're like 6 years old. I was a pretty tall fucking kid at 6. I was probably like 5'10" at 6. No, that's a lie. Fuck. I'm sorry. I was 5'9" when I was 9. So at 6, I was probably like 5'6". Let's just put it that way. So I was like a pretty, like, average size adult as a kid. And, well, not average male anyway. But I was fucking tall as fuck. Let's just put it that way. But I wasn't necessarily, I had some fucking LBs on me. Don't get me wrong. But I wasn't like a plump kid. So I thought, oh, fucking Santa's going to go to like one of the kids that are like kind of like round and jolly. But my teacher was like, actually, in Sweden, Santa, or they call him Jultomten, but they call him Tomten. And he's actually like kind of like a tall, lanky kind of Santa Claus. And he kind of like, grabes around, you know what I mean? And for anyone who would like to know, and I had to say this because this was my line in the play, I said Gajul, which is like Merry Christmas, like good Yule time, in Swedish. So that's probably actually all I know in that language. But again, really interesting how that was kind of like, really my first like conscious kind of thought of like, every other country does it differently. And in fact, it's funny because my own family has our own kind of thing too. And it's really based on Lithuanian tradition. In Lithuanian tradition, Christmas Eve, or Kūčios, as we call it, is the most important night. Like Christmas Day is great. Jesus is here. Yay. But Christmas Eve is like the most important day. You don't eat fucking meat. And like, it's interesting because Lithuania is like a predominantly Catholic country. And it's funny that whole like don't eat meat on Fridays, or like don't eat meat during the holidays and eat fish and stuff. It was actually a ploy put on by like the fishmongers and the people who sold fish in Rome to make more people buy fish because the sales were dwindling. So they convinced the Pope to be like, yo, go tell everyone to like, don't eat meat on Friday and eat fish. And we'll fucking boost some sales. So anyway, it's permeated the Catholic tradition. And definitely Lithuania is fucking a part of that. And my family was a part of that. And with my, like when I was a kid, I was split between my parents, and when I would go to my dad's, it was usually on Christmas Eve, and Christmas Eve was always great at my pops's because that was like our day. We that was like the day for presents, the day for family if we were going to see anybody, and it was always really nice. And so it even though that's not necessarily, my pops isn't like, we weren't celebrating the Lithuanian tradition, and sometimes we'd have meat. Don't tell the Pope. But we would, always have a good time. And then I'd go home. My mom would always give us, me and my sister, pajamas. And like the night of Christmas, that was like our gift. Sorry, Christmas Eve. The night of Christmas. What the fuck? Christmas Eve, we'd always get PJs or pajamas. And, wake up in the morning. Wasn't like, I don't know. It probably was different every year, but like, I was never like a wake up at 6 a.m. kid. Like, wake up a little early, but do your thing. And as I got older, I probably had to kind of like wait around sometimes for everyone else to get up. My family likes to sleep in. But and then go presents, and then have like a nice little stockings first, of course. Stockings important. Everyone has their own one, and then gifts, and then like a nice little breakfast, and then you fucking chill out and have a good time. And depending on what day it is of the week, or whatever, it's a big dinner happening later, or church is involved somehow. Wasn't necessarily always attending, but always a big part of things in Catholic tradition. There's like a big Christmas Eve mass, like midnight mass, like so you're like going into New Year, or sorry, into Christmas, and then Sunday, obviously, yay, Jesus is here. Everyone's fucking stoked, right? So, obviously a big part of things. And, again, just like, I glossed over the fact that was part of like, worldly tradition. Like other countries were doing this. And I know, again, in Lithuania with Kūčios, you get, there's like 12 dishes that are like all the 12 apostles and shit like that. Linksmu Kalėdų to all my Lithuanian people out there. That's how you say Merry Christmas. Linksmu Kūčios, Linksmu Kalėdų. What up, everybody? This is dropping on December 21st, so it's a few days before Christmas, don't get me wrong, but hopefully this is taking you all through the holiday season. I don't know if y'all have been traveling. If you're listening to this in your car, I don't know. Like, again, hit me up. Hit up the DMs. I want to know. Are you guys listening in the car? What do you guys do? Do you watch? I know some of my boys. I know Mike Norman. What up, shutout player? Hey. I know you like to watch, which sounds fucking crazy, but I love you. I know, like I said, everyone who's watched on YouTube are creeps, and everyone who's listening are peeps. No, what was it? It's some fucking bullshit. It's from the It's Always Sunny fuck, can't talk tonight. It's from the It's Always Sunny podcast, and like I said, what do they call their listeners? Damn it. Anyway, thanks everybody. Again, happy holidays. Thanks for listening. Thanks for taking your time. You could have been anywhere else, but you're here. Thank you. I've had the opportunity to spend Christmases, in other places. It wasn't always at home, and I was lucky to do that, going up to Red Lake, Ontario, where a lot of my family's from. Shout out everybody in Red Lake. And that was a nice cold one and lots of snow. Ottawa with family, California with the same family. They just moved out there, so that was always fun to have a green Christmas that way. Hamilton, Ontario has always been green. Like, we talk about global warming and shit. Like, I don't recall that many white Christmases in Hamilton, and we have a weird fucking climate here. Someone told me when I was working behind the bar, so take that with a grain of salt, but someone told me when I was working behind that Hamilton has 31 microclimates. So depending on where you are in Hamilton, there's like 31 different types of fucking weather that there could be. I mean, or the weather could be different depending on if you're in any one of those 31 different the quadrants of the Abraham. But again, it's one of those things where it's so wonderful to spend time with family no matter where it is in the world. And, I'm really, really, really grateful and really looking forward to spending Christmas this year in Germany. I'm going to see my folks and see the same fam actually that we were in Ottawa and California with. So, it's gonna be lovely to be all back together, and we're all meeting in Amsterdam and then driving down. My parents don't live too far. They live in Germany, but they're only like 2.5 hours or something like that or 3 hours, something like that from Amsterdam. And, yeah, like I said, it's going to be wicked. Like, Christmas in Germany, like fucking gingerbread or whatever. The beautiful Christmas markets, and, obviously working in the beer industry, a lot of my colleagues we're really looking forward to me heading down there, because in Cologne, in Cologne, Germany, is actually where they have like some of the best Kolsches in the world. And then Belgium's right there, and I'm hoping that we get to go to the Orval Brewery, which is actually very close, or sorry, not very close, but relatively close. Like, that's the coolest thing about Europe, right? Like, everything is like, even if it's 2 hours, you're going from Germany to like Belgium, or like to fucking Amsterdam to Germany. Like, you're like covering some ground, and you're getting places where you drive for 2 hours in Ontario, you're still in fucking Ontario for real. So anyway, that's going to be really, really fun. I'm super, super looking forward to that. Adding to the Christmas memories, and, looking back on some when I was getting this podcast ready, like, there's so many things that have happened, and, I remember one time, I guess I was about 6. We were up in Ancaster for a bit, where my sister was born, and I don't know how it happened. I guess it was just like the way it was set up, but I was like fucking around. I don't think I even bumped into it, but I just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and the Christmas tree fell completely on top of me. And I was like, fuck, man, these ornaments are sharp as shit. And ever since then, my mom always wires up the Christmas tree, so that it doesn't fall. And, it always reminds me of, it's always an odd practice, really, if we think about it. Like, there's I'm pretty sure it's a Jim Gaffigan bit, and he talks about, the idea of Christmas, or actually might even be Seinfeld, but I think Gaffigan does it. And, it's kind of the behavior of like a fucking drunk person, right? Like, honey, what happened? Like, oh, I took out the fucking, like, Buddy's wife comes home, and she's like, what happened? And Buddy's like, I took all the lights inside and I put them outside, and then I took a tree and I brought it inside, and we're going to decorate it for Jesus. So it's an interesting thing. And, people kind of wonder, like, where do some of these traditions come from? And there is this idea that, Christmas in general kind of came out of like a pagan tradition. So I believe it was during the Council of Nicaea, which is about 500 years after Jesus was crucified. But they decided when Jesus' birth date was, and like the celebrations around it. And a lot of that actually had to do with the Roman Empire was Christian, but it was slowly converting a lot of pagans. So a lot of the places that the Roman Empire was running into were pagan. They worshipped nature. There was even like multi-deity. They believed that there wasn't one god, there was multiple gods, if any, and if anything, it's nature and Mother Earth and all that. And December 25th, still to this day, is actually the pagan celebration of the sun. So it was a big thing in the sun of God, blah, blah, blah. They started kind of putting things together, and a lot of like imagery that you see and things, they tried to bring in and mesh a lot of those ideas with paganism and Christianity, just to ease people into the transition. And another big tie, obviously there's like Easter is like based on like the lunar calendar and stuff. So anyway, there's like a few different things that are involved with Catholicism and Christianity that are like kind of pagan based. And of course, like we said, one of the big ones is Christmas. And again, why are we bringing a fucking tree into the house? And why are we decorating it? Why are we putting presents under it? And actually, one of the big ideas behind that, and behind Santa in general, and the whole idea of this semi-supernatural character kind of like going from home to home and delivering presents to everybody, that this idea actually came out of the traditions of Arctic shamans. So Arctic shamans, obviously being in the Arctic, there were these, for anyone who doesn't know what a shaman is, they're kind of like this like teacher, priest, medicine man person, doctor, who they themselves have taken, in most traditions are either deeply meditative or have taken psychedelics and have gone through rituals and have honed their skills and practices around those psychedelics. And essentially they are like a liaison, again, similar to a priest, but like, again, this liaison to God, to the other realm, to higher powers, whatever it might be, to afterlife. I don't even know. They're seen as these givers and healers and things like that. And these Arctic shamans happen to dress in red deerskin that happen to have white lining on it. And they wore these like pointed hats or these hoods that were pointed, and some of them had a white ball on it. Again, very similar already. The dress, the way that they dress themselves, very similar to Santa. We're not going to get into the whole idea that the modern Santa with the beard and everything is a fucking Coca-Cola ad. We're not going to go there today. But this whole idea that the garb and the whole idea comes from the shaman, it also comes from the idea of the Amanita muscaria mushroom, which is a major part of this whole story. And the Amanita muscaria mushroom is a psychedelic mushroom. Muscatin or something like that, or muscat. Anyway, there's like a certain psychoactive compound in there that is known to provide the user with a psychedelic experience. Let's just put it that way. Vikings were eating it and going into fucking battle. It's not necessarily as visionary as a psilocybin mushroom, but I think if you like process it in a certain way, it has a lot more of that kind of spiritual compound. Now, an Amanita muscaria mushroom only really grows in very, very specific areas in the world, like some places in Canada, but mostly like in the Arctic, northern Siberia, all up in there, and it grows at the base of pine trees. That's just where it likes to grow. And what the shamans would do is they would pick these mushrooms and then they would put them in the trees to dry, because you want the mushrooms to dry out, because it helps some of those compounds to kind of concentrate, I guess you could put it that way. So they would dry them out and they would put them on trees. And the red and white, like the Amanita muscaria mushroom is basically like picture like a funky mushroom, like apart from like a white fucking button mushroom, just picture a mushroom. You're probably thinking of a mushroom that's red cap with white dots on it, with the white stem. That's an Amanita muscaria mushroom. And there's got to be something about that. Yeah, it's in much imagery and we see it all the time, but there's something about that image. And it's an emoji, for fuck's sakes. So it's really interesting that all these kind of pieces are starting to get put together here, right? Once those mushrooms were dried, the shaman would actually stick them in a big bag and carry the bag over his shoulder in a big sack, and then he would deliver the mushrooms to homes. And a lot of times, being the Arctic, it snowed and the fucking doors were shut, so he'd have to go through the chimney and deliver it through the chimney. So that's the idea of presents kind of coming down the chimney. And again, why are there reindeer involved? In fact, the funny thing is, with Arctic shamans, their spirit animal was a reindeer. And the weirdest thing about reindeer is that they love Amanita muscaria. They will eat it up. If you eat it and you go to pee, they will fucking pull you over to get at the pee. They want it. They need it. Because actually, when you pee, the psychoactive compounds are still active. And in fact, it was known that at the time, these Arctic shamans would actually drink the reindeer urine after they had ingested the mushrooms, and it would go through some kind of filtering process essentially, and it would be just as powerful or more, and then they would hallucinate that these reindeer looked like they were flying. And the whole idea with Rudolph and his red nose, again, if that was the mushroom, is that the mushroom is actually leading you through this journey and getting you to a place that, you're taking off and you're high and you're flying. The allegories get a little bit, a little bit more blunt as we go on. But I always thought that was really, really fascinating that, all that has gone in. And for some reason, there's so much, like, in my research, I didn't even realize until I read this. There is so much fucking mushroom iconography in Christmas stuff. Like, you look everywhere, there's little mushrooms and shit here and there, which is kind of weird because the fuck are mushrooms doing in winter? So, well, I guess they grow, but not in places that have snow on the ground. No, that's another thing too. Like, it's going to be really interesting in Germany to kind of see, because I believe they're more northern than us, at least where my family is, but it's not as temperate, or it doesn't get as cold. So, like I said, Hamilton doesn't get a lot of snow during Christmas, but it's still fucking cold. It's still Canada, and we usually get snow like the day after or stuff like that. But, either than being in California that one Christmas, and I went to Florida. It was like, I'm pretty sure it was on Boxing Day where we flew. I don't think we flew. I think we were able to have Christmas. But we went to this tournament like on fucking like during Christmas basically, and that was in Florida, and that was fucking sick. So it's not going to be tropical, don't get me wrong, in old Deutschland, but I'm really looking forward. It's going to be really cool. Good beers, good fun, seeing the fam. Again, it's interesting. Christmas is a really interesting time, where it makes you really, think about your friends and think about your family. And as much as we love Thanksgiving and all that stuff, I don't know, it seems like such a much more grateful time, and everyone's giving gifts to each other, and everyone's reaching out, and it's so special. And I think if you have any tradition at all, and if you don't, come up with one, because I've said it before, I'll say it again on this podcast, tradition, we're starting to kind of throw it out. Tradition's dying. And these little things, as much as we've extended the Christmas season and made it last 2 months now, all that shit, we need to take these couple days that we all have and do something that a lot of people are doing at the same time. It seems trivial, I guess, but there's something really special when a lot of people get together and they do the same thing, right? There's that whole idea that thought and intention may have some type of physical effect. I've said it before, but there's this idea that on 9/11, when the tragedies happened in New York City, so many people on earth were feeling such heavy, intense, major emotion. And I was in grade fucking 5, but I swear, I felt it. Like, I wasn't, you're like 12 or whatever, 11. You kind of got your shit together. I felt like I had my shit together, not your shit together, but like you're like a human. And I really could feel something. Maybe I couldn't put it into words at the time, but I know, I still remember that feeling. And there's like hundreds of random number generators placed around the world just to, observe said effects. And they noticed that all these random number generators stopped being so random. Like they started creating patterns, which is very odd. Why would that possibly affect? But again, there's something where mass intention and mass feeling and emotion and that type, it's not thought per se, it's not prayer, it's this feeling of intention, and you're sending those feelings somewhere, and that accumulates somehow, and it might, bring some type of order to chaos, and who knows how that happens. But if that can happen during the season, I wish it for everyone. I wish it for each and every one of you. And I thank you all for listening. I love you. I want everyone to have a happy holiday season, no matter what you're celebrating. If you're not celebrating anything, I love everybody. I love you all. Thank you all for listening. Again, hit us up, DM, Bigmark Podcast, Bigmark Pod, Twitter, Instagram, Patreon, patreon.com/BigmarkPod. Have a Merry Christmas. If the fates allow. All that good stuff. Thank you so much. I love y'all. Merry Chrysler. Peace. Peace.